Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I know people are popping in, but we're so excited to have you all join our St. Patrick's Day in Ireland travel talk. As we're having people join us, I would love if you all would pop into the chat your name and where you are joining us from. Love to engage with you all.
She was a fishmonger, and sure 'twas no wonder, for so
Oh, I see Mickey in San Diego, Jenna in Toronto, Catherine from LA, John from Pennsylvania. Oh, awesome. We have Canada over here as well. That's great. Nancy from New York, Pamela from Wisconsin. Oh, that's great. Well, as everybody's joining us, we have Drew from Honolulu. That's beautiful. Well, yeah, people are popping in. As you're coming in, just welcome again to our St. Patrick's Day in Ireland travel talk here with the Head Tours. We're so excited for everyone to join us. We'll get started in just a minute here. Yeah, Autumn from Virginia. Yeah, as you're popping in, feel free to pop your name and where you're joining from into the chat here. Hey, George and Beth from Ohio, Colin from Ottawa, Lynette from Kansas. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, everyone. So excited to have you here with us today. Oh, I see Sue is going with us to Ireland next month. That's so exciting. We can't wait to see you on tour. Beautiful. Well, again, thank you everyone so much for joining us here at our St. Patrick's Day in Ireland travel talk here with EF Go Ahead Tours. My name is Marissa. I am the team lead for our traveler support team here in our Boston office. I personally have some Irish heritage myself, so I'm so excited to learn about one of the most wonderful holidays that is celebrated in Ireland. I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping details before we get started. Today we are in a Zoom webinar format. So though I am not able to hear you, I'm not able to see you, but we do really want to hear from you. So when you are, as we're going here, feel free to pop any comments you might have into the chat box, any questions that you might have into our question and answer box, the Q&A box there. We will be having time at the end of our presentation to answer some of your questions, but we also will have other questions that we'll be answering throughout the presentation. So as they come up for you, pop them there into that Q&A box, and we are so excited to answer them as we go throughout the presentation. So just to set the stage for everyone as we get started here, I'm sure that when you think about Ireland, the idyllic rolling countryside comes to mind. The majestic power of the cliffs of Moher, the beautiful colors of Irish step dancing costumes, and that engaging music that makes you want to get up off of your feet and join in with the dance. I'm sure you imagine yourself getting a pint of Guinness at a local pub and hope while you're there that you're able to participate in some of the fun traditions of the country, like kissing the Blarney Stone at Blarney Castle. Well, today we have the pleasure of learning about one of the Irish traditions that's also celebrated here in the United States, especially in my hometown of Boston, which is St. Patrick's Day. Whether you love history and you want to learn more about the origins of the holiday, or if you're just here to learn about Irish coffee and to get some pub recommendations for St. Patrick's Day in Dublin, this travel talk is for you. And I have the pleasure of introducing to everyone our wonderful host for today, one of our incredible tour directors in Ireland, who is Patricia. So Patricia, thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, Marissa, and it is a real pleasure to join you this afternoon. My name is Patricia O'Donnell. I was born and raised here in the southern part of Ireland, and I am so delighted to be taking you virtually around Ireland, especially for the St. Patrick's Weekend Festival. I have been with EF Go Ahead since 2015.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. We're so lucky to have you today, Patricia. Now, let's kick things off by talking a little bit about the geography of Ireland. Where could you tell us a little bit about where Ireland's located and some of the things that people might expect to see while they're there?
Well, Ireland, you can see there on the map, a tiny little island just off the west coast of Europe. Our nearest neighbour on the east side is England, United Kingdom, Scotland, England and Wales. And then just a short hop across the Atlantic Ocean, we find ourselves in North America. So we are quite small and tiny. I understand that the size of Ireland is compared to the size of the state of Maine. So that'll give you an idea of how small Ireland is.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for that context. Let's talk now about St. Patrick's Day. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of the holiday and what kind of the traditions around that celebration?
Well, St. Patrick's Day is, needless to mention, the biggest and most exciting day in Ireland every year. It is a national holiday, not just in Ireland, but in parts of the Caribbean. I believe Newfoundland and many other countries as well have as a national holiday. But St. Patrick is very important to the Irish people because we understand that he brought Christianity to Ireland. Now, as a young man of 16 years of age, he was brought to Ireland and sold into slavery, where he worked on the mountains looking after the sheep. And we understand and believe that he had a calling, and he found himself wanting to go back to England and get educated and come back and convert the Irish people. Because while he was here as a young man, he saw that the pagan rituals were very prominent and he didn't like them. So he came back and he decided to use a simple little plant like the shamrock. And I have a bowl of shamrock here for you to see. It is quite important that we have shamrock on St. Patrick's Day. And he used the shamrock to explain the three-in-one God, the Holy Trinity. Now, many of the pagan rituals we still use some of them today, and I'll talk about them later, but we still, some of them, they're maybe the smaller impact ones. But he was adamant that he would not fall out with the local people and that he would work with the pagans. And he took their symbol, the circle for the sun, because the pagans adore the sun. He took the symbol of the circle and laid the Christian cross on top of it. And hence we got the Celtic cross. Now there you see a Celtic cross, beautiful ornate design at both sides. That would always indicate to you the wealth of the family who had this Celtic cross. But it was very important and still is very important to the Irish people. Now, in particular, in the Hill of Slane, and this is the Hill of Slane, this is where St. Patrick would have converted a lot of the Irish people. He would have converted them to Christianity. And you can see in the distance there are many, many Celtic crosses in that yard. This is the hill where he lit the Paschal fire. And it is believed that he was so important that the kings at the time succumbed to him. And he is accredited having succeeded in fighting that great war against the pagans without losing a drop of blood. St. Patrick is hugely important to the Irish people. Of course, as children, we love the idea that we will be taken to parades, we will get a day off school, but most importantly, that we would spend a day with our families and dress up in our traditional Irish dresses.
Oh, well, yeah, that definitely sounds like, a wonderful, wonderful reason to celebrate with your family. And thank you for telling us, about St. Patrick himself. So yes, let's talk more about those traditions and celebrations that would happen, with your family and at those parades.
Well, on St. Patrick's Day, you would always, of course, start the day by dressing up in green, white and gold, but particularly in green, and we would wear the shamrock. You'd wear the shamrock on your lapel. It'd be very important that you'd wear the shamrock. As small children in school, we may make some badges in school, little homemade badges that the children would wear. And of course, it would be important that we would raise a glass to the others. And let it be Guinness, which of course is our famous beer, or of course our great whiskies. And the phrase we would use is that we would drown the shamrock. And by drowning the shamrock meant that you are getting rid of any ill will and that you are moving forward in great spirits. Now, every town, of course, city, town, small village, or maybe even small community would hold a parade on St. Patrick's Day. And the local children in the schools will take part. Shamrock sellers in Dublin. Now, that is an old picture, but that's exactly like what still happens in the rural places, where the young children will go out and they'll pick the shamrock in the fields, just like we all did when we were growing up, and we will bring it into the towns and the villages and sell it to the people passing by. Of course, there we see a picture of the St. Patrick's Day parade in Boston, which was the first Patrick's Day parade to ever take place back in the early 1700s. Of course, New York is accredited as having the finest St. Patrick's Day parade every year. So many Irish people went across to North America and settled there and took that tradition with them. Needless to say, of course, Chicago is the one that we all admire every year because the water turns green. And then you have the great bright colors of many other cities. In particular, they're speaking about New Orleans. But in cities across the world, like in Sydney, the Opera House goes green. Actually, in our own capital city, in Dublin, there's a monument of light in the center of the city, which is turned green for St. Patrick's Day. This is our parade in Dublin. The parade in Dublin lasts about 4 to 5 hours. It goes right down through the main street, and many visiting bands coming particularly from North America and other parts of Europe as well. And they would entertain for the afternoon. And of course, as we know, the sun is always shining. There you have in Galway as well, one of our other lovely cities. It's quite normal to see people out dancing in the street like that on Patrick's Day. And of course, we have the Irish step dances as well, which is important that these traditions are carried on. These beautiful dresses that these young girls are wearing here, they are designs taken from the wonderful Book of Kells that we'll speak about later on. These designs are Celtic designs. They're ones that have been passed down through the generations. These young girls, as you can see, are doing hard shoe dancing, but there are a variety of different dances. And of course, this style of dancing is renowned across the world to have originated here in Ireland. It was a must as a young girl to learn how to step dance. It was just something you automatically learn to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I see the color green. It's a very common theme here. Now, why do we wear green on St. Patrick's Day?
Yes, and you know, you're wearing green in your hair and your lovely red hair, and I'm wearing green. Yes, we do wear green, always to symbolize St. Patrick's Day, and green symbolizes Ireland. But an interesting fact that many people aren't aware of, and it's always a kind of a trick question when you're on tour with a group and you ask them what's the national color, and a chorus of green comes from the back of the coach. No, really, our national color is blue. Because prior to the Reformation, to King Henry VIII taking over the church in Ireland, blue was the national, or green was the national color. And of course, it changed at that time. But the Irish people, I suppose a little bit in their little rebellious way, decided they would follow on from St. Patrick's tradition and they would wear green. He used the green plant to explain the Christianity. And of course, we are called the Emerald Isle. So it's a way more suitable that we are called a green country. We get a little bit of, or maybe more than a little bit, of the liquid sunshine throughout the year, which helps it make the grass grow green.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, we love that liquid sunshine for getting everything so green, but we also hope that it doesn't come while we're on tour, I'm sure. Yes, perfect. Well, let's move into our next section here. Now, obviously, drinks are a part of the tradition of St. Patrick's Day, and one specific, very special drink that we see a lot in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day is Irish coffee. So Patricia is actually going to be talking through how to put that together for us, but if you're following along at home to make it, this is the list of ingredients. So you'll want to make sure you have a cup of freshly brewed hot coffee, a tablespoon of brown sugar, a jigger of Irish whiskey, so about 1.5 ounces or 3 tablespoons, and then also some heavy cream, so slightly whipped, and a footed mug or just a mug in general, so something that has a handle. So let's turn over to Patricia to talk us through how we put that together.
Okay, Marissa, well, here we are. We're going to, first of all, we have our footed mug, one with a handle. Now, this is just really just to make it easier for you to be able to hold it, because it's going to get quite warm. So we're going to heat the glass, but it's important that you leave a silver spoon in the glass, which will prevent the glass from cracking when the boiling water goes in. So this is, get it good and warm, make sure it's good and warm, and then you just heel that out. Now our glass is lovely and warm, put in back in our spoon. Now we're going to get a measure of whiskey. Now this is Jameson. This is distilled quite local here in County Cork. So in Ireland, we're not very good at measuring. So we just, just make sure there's lots. Okay, there's a good, decent amount of whiskey, and put that in there, right? And then we get our brown sugar. Get our spoon of brown sugar. Now you can have as much sugar as you like. Some people like a lot of sugar. Other people don't like sugar at all. But it just helps, because this is going to be a delicious drink. But it is important that you dilute the sugar completely into the whiskey. You must dilute the sugar, otherwise it will not settle properly. And it is worth making right. Okay. It's a great drink. It's a celebratory drink. And of course, a drink that we all like to enjoy on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so I've got the coffee made already. I'm going to fill up my glass with coffee. I mightn't come too full because I want to make plenty of room for the cream. So here we are. Keep stirring it there. Oh, that coffee smells good. Nice, okay. Here we are, we have some fresh cream. Fresh cream. Now, some people like to use pouring cream. Personally, I like it a little bit whipped. Now I'm going to take out my spoon. I nearly forgot that there. Oops. Take out my spoon and get myself a good spoon of cream. And if there's no one looking, I can have a second bit. There you go. Right. Sláinte, which is good health. Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Okay. I hope you're all enjoying your coffees. Sláinte.
Oh, that looks so delicious. If it were in lunchtime here in Boston, I would totally be joining you with that, but it's a little too early on my side of things.
And maybe there isn't much fun having one on my own. So maybe I'll leave that there until I get some company later.
Oh, there you go. Sounds perfect. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for talking through that with us. Now, the next thing we're going to chat a little bit about is some more options of drinks that you can have while you're there. So we'd love to hear from you, Patricia, about some pub recommendations that you have to visit in Dublin during St. Patrick's Day.
Now, on St. Patrick's Day, of course, it is very, very busy, but there's lots of other days. You may be in Dublin on your tour and you may be there a quieter day. Any of these pubs, really, I have to say that the standards of the pubs in Dublin city and in the towns and cities across the country are very good. Any of these, I personally like to go to a small pub where you can sit down and enjoy the music and enjoy the singing and the chatting. Now, as you know, the Irish people love to talk. And if you go into any one of those bars, you can expect the locals to join in conversation with you straight away. And by the time you've left, you'll have heard their life story. But any of those and most of the pubs also serve food. So on Patrick's Day, I always recommend to my groups that if they get into a bar and if they get a nice comfortable seat, don't leave it too soon, because there's many people around that'll be quick to jump into your spot. Any of those are definitely a lovely place to go for a drink.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. And I know music obviously is a large aspect of St. Patrick's Day as well. In these pubs, is it usually locals? Virginia was wondering, is it usually locals who are singing and playing in the pubs, or is it more bands and professional musicians?
Well, there's a mixture of both, to be honest. You know, you may get an hour or 90 minutes where they'll have a professional player come in and sing songs, but they will always encourage the audience to come up and sing with them. But generally, a sing song can start as easy as not. You know, I mean, just somebody just decides they want to sing a song, and you will always get respect. People will listen. Always, it is just. It's just happens, you know, automatic. Somebody starts singing, the place goes silent and everyone listens. And no matter how good or bad a singer they are, people listen and they like to talk. So no, you can feel quite comfortable if you're in singing form to start a song anywhere you like at any time.
Well, I'm a singer myself, so I'm sure when I end up in Dublin for St. Patrick's Day, I'll be singing right along with everyone.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, I have seen here from the chat that a number of people are going to be joining us on some of our St. Patrick's Day tours. And so we would love to talk a little bit about our 2 itineraries that we have available for travelers to join us here at Go Ahead on a St. Patrick's Day itinerary. So the first option that we do have for travelers is our Week in Ireland St. Patrick's Day trip. So this is a 8-day tour. If you'd like to extend for an additional 3 nights, you could do our London extension. And this is really a wonderful tour. It's more of a highlight itinerary. So you're getting to spend some time in Dublin, some time in County Cork, and then also in County Galway. So of course, over the course of that trip, you're going to see, you know, Blarney Castle. You're going to see the Cliffs of Moher. It's a really beautiful tour that helps you see some of these highlight, you know, very significant and important locations throughout Ireland. Now, if you have a little bit more time that you're able to spend, we also would recommend our Traditions of the Emerald Isle tour that's St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. So you're hitting similar places, but also some more destinations along the way. So getting to spend some time in the Ring of Kerry in County Kerry. You're also getting to see the Rock of Cashel, you know, Killarney National Park. This is an 11-day tour. So once again, starting in Dublin, ending in Galway, but still, you know, ending your trip to fly out. Or actually, I'm sorry, you start in Galway and then end over in Dublin. So we're actually going to be talking through this particular itinerary with Patricia to hear more about these places that you can expect to see. So Patricia, could you talk us through a little bit about this itinerary?
Oh yes, this is a wonderful itinerary, and this itinerary gives you a good sense of everything, of all the parts of Ireland that make up the island it is. Being in Ireland, especially around, of course, the St. Patrick's Festival, is a really special time because there's a lot of different things happening. But here, this is just the scene you're seeing here. Probably just take 3 things out of Dublin. One is showing you the streetscape, which is beautiful Georgian architecture. Some of this architecture dates right back, and of course also Victorian. In the center, you have an image there of St. Patrick's Cathedral, that very same cathedral that was built on the spot where St. Patrick carried out most of his conversions when he was in Dublin. Now, St. Patrick's Cathedral is our national cathedral. It is Anglican, and it has been extensively renovated down through the last 30 to 40 years. And of course, you have our great friends, the Guinnesses, Sir Arthur Guinness, who was obviously a very astute businessman. And just over 100 years ago, he signed a lease for 9,000 years for the Guinness factory. They have opened up an amazing museum there, the Guinness Storehouse, 7 stories high, and you get the whole experience from beginning to end in the whole process of making the Guinness. And of course, at the end of your trip, you get the opportunity to pull your own pint. Here, of course, we have the beautiful Trinity College. Trinity College was opened in 16th century by Queen Elizabeth I of England. It is a very, very old building, and it houses the Book of Kells. The Book of Kells is that manuscript I referred to earlier, which has all those wonderful Celtic designs. Just by the way, if you are interested in ever going to see the Book of Kells and it's not on your tour, it is always something that can be facilitated, because it really is a must-see when you are in Dublin. Here you have the image of the lovely long room, which is part of Trinity College. It is home to over 200,000 books. It also houses Ireland's oldest harp, which is our national emblem, which was owned by our last High King. And in this room, there is so much history. However, many people like to come and see it just because it featured in the Harry Potter movies. Right, this is a typical day in Dublin on Patrick's Day. On your tour, it is always a free day. It is a free day simply because of logistics. There's no hope of any traffic moving. The streets are wall to wall, and all you can see there are lots of green hats or green, white, and gold hats. The people come out in the streets in their thousands. It is a great day, especially being a free day for you. We encourage the groups to go away and find their own, what they want to do, if they want to go into a bar, if they want to get themselves a good position to watch the parade, because this is what the parades are like. They're extremely colorful. As I say, many bands come from North America and from other countries as well, but it's very entertaining and goes on for quite a long time. It's a great day out, and everyone is in great form. There is never a problem, and of course the sun always shines.
Of course. We did have a couple questions, Patricia, around COVID. So do you know, are there any social distancing guidelines that are going to be in place this year? Like, do you expect it to be as crowded as it's been in years pre-COVID?
Good question. Ireland has resisted and has, gone away from all kinds of social distancing and mask wearing and all that in the last couple of weeks. Ireland, as an adult population, they were over 90% vaccinated and boosted, which is an incredible amount, right? Do you expect it to be as crowded? There will be big crowds. There's no doubt there'll be big crowds, but at the same time, everybody is allowed to do whatever is comfortable for them. Mask wearing is no longer obligatory here. Still, many people will still wear masks, and that and that's okay. They will not be. Nobody will be isolated because they're showing a need for social distancing. We just encourage people to use common sense, really.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving some more info around that. We, as I said, we did have a number of questions specifically around those entry requirements. And obviously this is something that is constantly changing as we see, around entry requirements. But currently, as of right now, as Patricia mentioned, Ireland has lifted their requirements, though as a company, Go Ahead does still ask travelers to be fully vaccinated to go on tour, as well as to have a test beforehand. But in terms of, when you're there, it's exciting. It should be a pretty normal St. Patrick's Day, which is wonderful. Great.
Now, we've spent our 2 days in Dublin and we're heading off down the countryside, coming down near to my part of the country. And here we take a stop off at this little place called Glendalough. Now, Glendalough is a Gaelic word, and translated it means the glen of two lakes. And this is where St. Kevin, one of our Irish saints, very, very illustrious young man. He was actually a prince, and he gave it all up and went away to live as a hermit down here in the valleys in County Wicklow. He built his little church that's referred to as Kevin's Kitchen, and you can see, of course, the round tower in the background as well. It was a sanctuary. It was a sanctuary for people who were in trouble, and St. Kevin has his own cross there. Ironically, not a Celtic cross, very, very plain and humble cross. It is in between two lakes, and it's a beautiful afternoon or morning, whichever you go there on your tour, because we go either time. But it's a lovely opportunity to go for a walk in great peace and tranquility right up to the two lakes. Then we leave Glendalough and we come on down to Kilkenny. Kilkenny, the city of the cats, is referred to as here, the Marble City. Kilkenny, ironically, was the capital city of Ireland at one time for a period of 9 years, until Cromwell came here in the 1600s, and after that it transferred back to Dublin. But in Kilkenny, you can see there are lots of colourful shops. That's exactly how the city is. They're all individual little shops. You don't have many of the great big supermarkets or anything like that. They're individual shops, all carrying out their own business. Of course, Kilkenny boasts of an amazing castle. A beautiful castle in Kilkenny that we will get to see. This was built by the Butler family. And I've had the great pleasure on tours there a couple of years ago of bringing direct descendants of these butlers to visit the castle in Kilkenny. It was built very strategically on 3 main rivers. And you could see the long room, or the great room is called, sorry, not the long room. It's called the great room. And this great room has lined wall to wall, lined with amazing tapestries. In the restoration of it, they carried out the whole history. They carved out the whole history of the castle in the ceiling. It is an amazing experience to go in, and you're allowed to go in and take your time and enjoy the tour. These kind of opportunities are great when you have a group, because everybody is bringing their own strength to the tour. Once we leave Kilkenny, we come down to the Rock of Cashel, another one of our great ecclesiastical sites, another place where St. Patrick would have come and carried out his conversions. The Rock of Cashel, many people expect to see a rock. It is a church and a monastery, and it is highly elevated up there and very, very exposed, but very strategic in other ways. The Rock of Cashel is one of the most visited sites in Ireland, and in recent years they've restored a chapel there where they carry out small and intimate functions. This has to be my favorite little town in Ireland. Is a town of Cobh, C-O-B-H, as you might say, reading your itinerary, Cobb or Queenstown. Cobh is a Gaelic word, and the reason it is pronounced is spelled C-O-B-H because there is no V in the Gaelic language. The Gaelic language is a beautiful language. We'll talk about that later on in a moment. But this is this little town, very small little town, but an important town, a very important town for the people of Ireland, because so many immigrations took place out of Cobh. It was the last port of call, of course, for the Titanic ship. These houses here, here we have the Immigration Museum, and this was once upon a time a railway, and now they have a museum to immigration in there. And when you go in, you assume the person of somebody who sailed away on a ship. The beautiful bronze sculpture on your left-hand side is indeed that of Annie Moore. Annie Moore and her 2 young brothers who left Ireland in the late 1800s and was the first lady to cross the threshold into Ellis Island. I understand there's a similar sculpture like that at Ellis Island. The Queenstown story is one where many of our visitors connect, and they connect with people who would have left from this very port to sail to America or Australia in times. Over 2 million people left Ireland through Cobh after the famine in the mid-1800s. Then we go into Cork City, lovely city, very friendly city, has a very different character to Dublin altogether. Very localized city, second largest city in the Republic of Ireland. It boasts of an amazing opera house and the Crawford Gallery. There you have the opera house and the Crawford Gallery. We spend usually an afternoon there. It's an opportunity to go and visit the English market, which dates right back to Queen Elizabeth's time, the first time, and has a thriving business. Has been indeed visited by the current Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, in 2011. Oh, and here we are in Cork. You know, one of the things that came out of the pandemic as a result of it, people in Ireland, as such, we're not used to eating outdoors. But since the pandemic, of course, there was no dining indoors. People got into the habit of it and has built up a very, very enjoyable event now. And many of our main streets have been pedestrianized and are given over to the small cafes and the bistros to set up their tables on the street. That's a lovely street in Cork, and at the very, very top of that picture, you see the spire of the Shandon Chapel, which is the oldest church in Cork.
Wow, that's great. Now, obviously, you know, eating outside is wonderful to have that opportunity, but weather is definitely a factor. Is there a best time? Barb was wondering, you know, is there a best time of year weather-wise to visit Ireland?
Hi, Barb. You come down anytime. Anytime is the best time to come to Ireland. Yes, you know, we get asked this question a lot. You know, really, I think the sun is always shining here in Ireland, and sometimes it's liquid sunshine, and we take that as well. But generally, our weather has changed. The weather here in Ireland, the climate has changed an awful lot in the last 15 to 20 years. We have a very temperate climate. We get a bit of the liquid sunshine. We get more of the bright yellow sunshine now. We have lots of green fields, but I promise you, if you come to Ireland and you bring with you a sweater and a wind cheater and good walking shoes, you'll not notice what the weather is doing.
That's true. There's no such thing as bad weather. It's just not prepared clothing.
Yes. We're on to Blarney Castle. I'm sure many of you have heard about the Blarney Castle that was built in the 10th century by the McCarthys. It is still to this day a privately owned castle, and has been recently had a good bit of refurb done to it. It is on 60 acres of parklands, which are beautiful and great for walking. Now, as you will go along to the castle, you will climb the steps. There are 127 steps to climb up there to that spot showing there with the arrow on the photograph. It is up there is where you kiss the Blarney Stone, and here's a young lady, I think, doing that act. Now, the 127 steps are spiral, and many people don't like to go up there, but I'll let you into a secret on the condition you don't tell anyone, and that is that there are thousands of stones in Blarney, and you can kiss any one of them you like. You do not need to climb that 127 steps, and I won't tell anyone. It is believed that once you kiss the Blarney, you will get bestowed with a gift of eloquence. And as they say here in Ireland, you'll never be stuck for words. It is a great visit. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's definitely very useful to have.
Right, and another thing about Blarney actually is it is home to the largest Irish gift shop in the world. Here we have, within the parklands, we have a poison garden. This is a real experience. It has been there for many, many years. There has never been any issues with it, and it is quite exciting for people to walk around and take some of the plants that they know quite well and never realized maybe that they were poisonous. Of course, you do what it tells you on the poster there. You do not touch, smell, or eat any plant. Right.
Perfect. Yeah, you definitely need to make sure that you appreciate it, but just from afar.
And here we are now, we're leaving Cork and we're heading across the south of the country into County Kerry. Now, many of you, of course, are familiar with Kerry, as in the group Kerry Gold, the brand Kerry that you have, which is the Irish produce being sold in North America. But we're going across the country and we're coming into a different kind of landscape. We're heading towards the coast as well, but a lot of mountains. Our highest mountain is in County Kerry, Corran, Tuil, and many, many lakes and mountains. Of course, without doubt, we will meet many of the locals, which are the sheep that are on the roadside as you go into Kerry. There are as many sheep in Ireland as people. So, you know, the sheep are very much part of our daily lives. You know, we meet them all the time on the roads, particularly down in Kerry, but also up the west of Ireland. As we'll go around the Ring of Kerry, which is a tourist trail, it's about 180 kilometers long. We will visit various towns on the Ring of Kerry. The Ring of Kerry was made famous by Queen Victoria, who came here in 1860. Now, the first town we meet once we leave, we start out on the Ring of Kerry route, is the town of Killarney. And, you know, we've mentioned Kilkenny and we've mentioned different places down now, but whenever you see the word Kil prefix another name, it means once upon a time there was a church there. And Killarney was one of those towns that was very much rooted in a lot of the pagan customs. And one of them, of course, was that they believed that when Cromwell came to Ireland, which, you know, when Cromwell came, it was very, very rough times, that the puck goat came down from the mountain and warned the people of his arrival, and meant that they were prepared to attack. Ever since, the Puck Fair, which is a festival that takes place the first weekend, the 10th of August every year, first week in August every year, this festival takes place where they bring in the puck goat and they honor him. Now, of course, there's quite a few Irish coffees and maybe a few hot toddies, and quite a bit of Guinness drank as well. And it's a great festival. But I can assure you that the goat is well looked after. You know, we're very, very attentive here to animal rights. But it's a great festival that takes place every year. We travel on around the Ring of Kerry and we come to this little village. This is what we refer to as the Bog Village. And of course, the bog is, you know, that very, very wet landscape where, you know, the peat is harvested for heating our houses down through the generations. But what I love about this little village, which has been totally reproduced as the villages were back in the early 19th century. This village, a visit in here will save you reading chapters and chapters and chapters of books, because it tells you every detail for all the different families and whatever your status was in the community, how you lived, what your house was like, and what was in it. Some of them are very beautiful inside, some of them are very poor inside. But it's a great visit to go to the Bog Village, and quite close by, we usually go across the restrooms where they are also, by accident, serving some Irish coffees.
Wonderful. That's great. Now, obviously, I'm sure food plays a big role into this too. And, you know, food is definitely, you know, prevalent in these traditions as well. So when we're thinking about, you know, food that's associated with St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, what are some of those meals that you might be seeing? Because I know, at least when I'm thinking about in America, we quite often have corned beef and hash as one of the meals. You know, what sort of things would we expect in Ireland?
Okay, interesting. In Ireland, generally on St. Patrick's Day, you see, when we were growing up in Ireland, St. Patrick's Day was like a special day. So there was always a special meal. And a special meal would be the Irish stew, or maybe the shepherd's pie or the cottage pie. But it's interesting you mentioned there about corned beef, and we get asked this question all the time on tour. Corned beef is actually not a traditional dish in Ireland. Corned beef and cabbage is more in the UK. Whereas we here in Ireland, we would have bacon and cabbage, because of course, when we were growing up, every family reared a pig and the pig was killed and you ate the bacon. So it was quite normal for us to have bacon and cabbage regularly as we were growing up. Now it's more the Irish stew or the shepherd's pie or the cottage pie. But of course, all the restaurants here now are meeting everyone's wishes and desires and needs when it comes to food. That looks really good though.
It does. It's getting me hungry. Now, where do we visit after this?
Oh, right. Okay. This is an amazing, amazing place. This is called Skellig Rock, Skellig Michael. And, you know, when the Irish people are pronouncing their S's, like in Sláinte, even, it's a sh sound, so it's Skellig Rock or Skellig Michael. This is another very ancient site. It was a site where the monks in the 6th century went out and lived there deprived themselves of all sorts of goodies. They lived in these little beehive huts, and they prayed, and they lived off the sea, of course, lived off the sea. And they would trade with the people from the mainland then for hides and things like that when they would come ashore. It is now a UNESCO site. It is visited, controlled really. It's very controlled how you visit there. They only allow so many visits every year and so many people, but it is extremely austere. It is amazing to see and to try and appreciate how the people live there in a time. And you're right out there on the Atlantic Ocean. You have no protection from the wind or the rain or the storms there. And of course, your only companion are the ships that might pass in the night. But it's a beautiful place, Skellig Michael. In more recent years, it was featured in the last Star Wars movie. So as we say when we're passing it, let the force be with you. Here we are heading our way right up through this, as you can see, fairly barren, open countryside to a place called Cumakishta. Cumakishta, translated, means hill of treasure, cove of treasure. And it's believed that when the Spanish Armada, the fleet that King Philip of Spain sent up to the Irish, when he sent up the Spanish Armada, it became a shipwrecked, and it got shipwrecked just off the coast here. And at that time, it's believed that people came ashore and they brought treasures from the ships with them, and they buried them in the mountain here to be retrieved at a later time. It's a story, it's a scale, but it's a beautiful view up there of the Atlantic Ocean. We head on down then into the little town of Sneem. Again, typical country town, couple of shops and there's a couple of bars, but they have an amazing ice cream parlor. And of course, we're very good on tours to find out the good places to stop for lovely ice cream at the end of your day. The Ring of Kerry Day is a fabulous tour. And we come right around the ring and we come to this amazing view, which no picture ever does it justice. It is the view of the Lakes of Killarney. There are several lakes in Killarney, but here you have the two main ones, which are ironically just called the Upper and Lower Lake. But this is called Ladies' View, because when Queen Victoria came to Killarney in 1861, she brought her ladies in waiting out to this particular spot to take a photograph for them to have a proper look at what was going on down there, just the sheer beauty. So we always stop there. There's no shop there, there's nothing there. It's just a lovely place to stop and appreciate the beauty of nature. So we're heading right down over the lakes into the National Park, Killarney National Park, 26,000, home to our only native deer, herd of native deer. Of course, they are protected species now, and they just have to be culled annually themselves. But the Ring of Kerry incorporates so much. It shows you everything that has been about Ireland over particularly the 19th century. And we make our way then into Killarney town. Again, as you can see, another very pretty town. It is definitely considered, I suppose, the capital of tourism in Ireland. Killarney is a must-go place, even for the Irish people themselves. When they're taking time out, they go to Killarney for their breaks. So again, you can see all individual little shops, no big corporate shops coming into this area, and all nicely painted and preserved. It's a real hub for an entertainment here. Is all the time, round the clock in the summertime. There's entertainment on the streets and busking. We leave Killarney and we head on up to see the majestic Cliffs of Moher. These are so sheer, 700 feet out of the Atlantic Ocean. You know, it's so rugged and so wide and so beautiful. And, you know, on a clear day, you can see right out into the ocean. And in the distance, you can see the three Aran Islands, that are three islands just off the west coast of Ireland, where they speak the Gaelic language all of the time. We're moving up the west now. It is quite rugged. The Cliffs of Moher are a must-see again. And we're onto this amazing landscape. It might look like a whole lot of rock, but this is referred to as the burn. The burn being a Gaelic word for rock. This is a karst landscape, a protected site. Again, of course, there's 5,500 acres of this up here, and it's solid rock with little dikes, more like a lunar landscape, and where some amazing plants that are more commonly found in the Mediterranean will grow in this area. The protection of this area is very well monitored, and the farming that happens here is contrary to the farming that happens anywhere else in the country. You might imagine how would the cattle manage on this land. The cattle go out on the rock for the winter and they come down in the lowlands for the summer. Total opposite to what happens in every other part of the country. Usually we try and get an opportunity to stop and go for a walk out on that landscape. Doesn't always happen, but we try and make it happen, especially if the weather is good, which of course it always is. Right, then we're coming on up into Galway City. Galway City, the gateway here to the west of Ireland. Galway City is always bustling with music and dance and street entertainment. Narrow little streets, many of them pedestrianized. Beautiful city. Everyone loves to spend some time in Galway. And what's lovely about Galway is that there's quite a lot of the native language is spoken in Galway. The Gaelic language is quite common to hear it on the streets as people are passing by. And the visitors enjoy that. There's an opportunity there to go and visit the cathedral, a beautiful cathedral there. We called it a young cathedral. It was only officially opened in 1965. It is one of the last cathedrals to have been built in concrete. Here you have Lynch's Castle, and you have the square in Galway. Lynch's Castle. Galway is interesting in that it was controlled back in the 18th century. It was controlled differently to other areas of the country, and it was controlled by tribes, and there were different tribes which were different families, and Lynch's was one of those. And of course, you know, as each one of the tribes took control, they built themselves a great house, and Lynch's Castle was indeed his. And Lynch had only one son, and his son was found guilty of murdering a sailor who came into Galway. And the punishment for murdering a sailor, murdering anybody, of course, was a life for a life. And his son had to be hung. Nobody would do the task for him, so he had to do it himself. And we get to see the window where it is believed, which has been preserved, where it is believed that he hung his own son, which we believe gave rise to the phrase, to lynch a man. Then you have there in the square, you had the Great Hotel. Now we're over in the Claddagh region. The Claddagh region is really a small fishing village where Galway really started. And it was in this region, this little cove here, where all the commerce took place, particularly with the Spaniards. There was quite a lot of exchange of salt and wine with the Spaniards, and he would have come up through the Spanish Arch, which is a trading post here in the Claddagh region. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about the Claddagh Ring. And the Claddagh Ring is a beautiful ring where there's two hands holding a heart with a crown on top. And the Claddagh Ring started out as being the ring that a young man would give to a young lady when, as we would say in today's language, they got engaged, betrothed to one another. And the young lady would wear the ring with the heart pointed away from herself, out towards her fingernail. On the wedding day, they would remove the Claddagh ring again, of course, on the fourth finger of her left hand. They would take off the Claddagh ring, turn it around, put it back on her hand, now with the heart turned towards herself, implying to others that she was now a married woman, as we would say that she was taken. So the Claddagh region is steeped in history in Galway, and the Claddagh ring is extremely popular and quite famous.
Now, Patricia, you had mentioned that, it's very common to hear the Gaelic language in Galway. Do all Irish citizens learn Gaelic in school growing up, or is that something that just some people learn?
No, yes, we all learn Irish. Once you go to once you start school, they even do it now from the preschool stage, where they learn to speak the Gaelic language right up until you're about 14 or 15. Then you have a choice. It's not encouraged that you give it up, but you have a choice. Some people just may not find it easy, but generally it is it's spoken. And when you speak the Irish language, the word we would use is cora. And cora is just where I might just start talking to you in Irish, but I could finish the sentence in English. And the week before St. Patrick's Day is called in Gaelic Seachtain na Gaeilge. And Seachtain na Gaeilge means the week for Irish. And we would all try and speak Irish more this particular week. So I'm going to have great fun on my tours if I try speaking Irish.
That's wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for talking through this itinerary, Patricia. It's just getting me wanting to go to Ireland so much. And I'd love to chat with everyone a little bit about, just real briefly, about some different types of tours that we do offer to Ireland. So if you're wanting to visit, we have our classic tour itineraries, like our usual week in Ireland tour, the traditions of the Emerald Isle. We have a grand tour of Ireland, which are mixed group departures, with different lengths of tours, many different options for you to choose from. If you are more outdoor oriented, or you want to go to some of the tours that have just more of the smaller off the beaten path locations, some of our adventure tours, like our walking tour of Ireland, might be the best fit for you. We do also have a number of solo travelers who do depart on tours with us. We actually have a solo tour that's leaving tomorrow that Patricia is going to be the tour director for. So if any of you are departing tomorrow, you'll be seeing Patricia in person real soon. But we have that as an option, as well as a brand new specific food and wine of Ireland itinerary. One of my colleagues is heading on that tour soon, and she's so excited. A great opportunity to try and pour yourself some Guinness in person, have some of that Irish coffee. And then we also do have, as a part of our business, we have our private groups team. So if you ever wanted to have a group, if you're recruiting people to join you and you wanted to have your own group to go on one of these tours, or if you wanted to take one of our itineraries and customize it for your own group, that is also something we would love to help with. So lots of different ways to engage with us here at Go Ahead in Ireland. All of them are incredible and really get a chance to dive into this beautiful, rich history. But let's transition now for our last few minutes here into a Q&A with Patricia. So I'll get started. Actually, really what we were just chatting about here, around traveling solo. Is Ireland a safe place to travel solo? Diane was wondering.
Absolutely, Diane. As I say, I'm leading a solo travel group tomorrow, starting tomorrow morning. Ireland is a very, very safe country. It's immediately once our groups kind of understand that, and once they arrive and once we explain to them, it's very safe. All you have to do in Ireland is talk to people, because everyone is there to help you and they love to talk. But yes, absolutely no issues at all. And I'm really looking forward to the solo group tomorrow, because that brings a whole lot of different interesting facts to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. We did have another question that came up around Blarney. Now, with COVID, are people still able to kiss the Blarney Stone to get that eloquence, or is that something that's not happening right now?
It's happening. It's happening. Oh. Yes, it is happening. Many people, because of COVID, would have walked up and would have gone through the motions, but not necessarily kissed it. But it is happening. It's open. And, one thing that we'd have to give credit is they really, really, sanitized and looked after the guests very well.
That's great. That's great to hear. We did have another question that came in from Anon about recommendations for souvenirs. Are there any particularly crafty souvenirs that people who are interested in those sorts of things that you'd recommend getting, or just what is the most recommended souvenir for people to bring home from Ireland?
Is a bit like any of us when we go away, we like to bring home something, but we like to bring home something that's genuine. And we like to bring home something that's real, and that's not a plastic thing that was made in God knows where. But really, what we find is, We spoke about traditions. There's lots of other traditions as well. There is a thing called St. Bridget's Cross, which is usually a beautiful souvenir that people like to take home. They might want to buy something simple, something that hang in their wall, or they might want to take it home in a brooch or whatever, or then the men wear them as well. That's something good. Like, you know, I always try and bring home maybe some coasters or something that has the scenes of Ireland on it, or maybe a Christmas decoration, because, you know, you come around every year. But no, there's so many. And I mentioned the gift shop in Blarney. And the reason I mentioned that is because in that particular shop, you'll get everything from A to Z. It is huge. And quite a lot of people like to buy the sweaters, to you know, the Ireland sweaters, and all
I'm wearing one right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you know the stitches? Do you know the significance of the different stitches? All those stitches have a different significance. The cable is the one for the rope makers. The diamond were the wealthier landlords. The double moss was the tenants. The link was for the men who mended the nets and things like that. So the sweaters, and if you don't need a sweater, maybe a cap, maybe a scarf. Maybe it's just something that will always be Irish, and will speak Irish to you. You know, when you see it, that you will immediately reconnect with your tour.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have time for just one more question. If we're not getting to your question, don't worry, we will follow up with some more information from you and insight from Patricia. But our last question, I would say, for the day, you know, if travelers are looking to get around in Dublin specifically, is there any public transportation, or is it all going to be walking, or what's the easiest way for travelers to get around Dublin during their free time?
Oh, there's absolutely no issues. We have a light rail, which we call the Luas, which is a Gaelic word for speed. We have the Luas, we have buses, and you know, Dublin is small. You can walk Dublin very comfortably, and it's easily navigated, very, very easy navigated. So no issue at all. There's plenty of transport and plenty of ways of getting around the city. We don't recommend that you cycle.
Okay, yes, I think whenever you're going somewhere new, sometimes that can be a more difficult transportation option. Perfect. Well, I just want to thank you again, Patricia, so much for joining us today. It's been so wonderful hearing about, you know, the wonder of St. Patrick's Day and Ireland itself. So we're lucky to have you join us. And so thank you so much for being here today.
I want to wish you all a very, very happy St. Patrick's Day. Lá féile pári yíomh go léir. Tá súla go make sure be there in now, Megan. And I'm looking forward to you being in Ireland sometime. Slán go fóill. Sláinte.
Sláinte. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day and happy early St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, thank you. All right, bye-bye, everyone.